All rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez, absent. Councilwoman Eckhart. Here. Councilman Larka.
Here.
Councilman Lord.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notations of the exits in the front and the rear in electronic device. Please put it on vibrate. I make a motion to come out of the executive session. No action was taken. I'll second. All in favor?
Sorry, John.
Aye.
Okay, we have 2 public hearings on the agenda this evening, which shouldn't take for too long. Make a motion to open the public hearing for Chapter 39, alarm permits.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I also waive the reading of the notice in the paper.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone here tonight to discuss alarm permits? Eric, you had one recommendation about the fee not raising from 50 to 20, from 25 to 50?
Yeah, so I called some neighboring towns to see if they charge a fee to simply have a centrally monitored alarm system for the residents. And most towns didn't. I came across 2 towns that do. Carmel had a $40 and it wasn't Phillipstown. Phillipstown didn't have one.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter. So most towns don't have a fee, but they have a strict fee structure for when there's false alarms. So I'd like to keep the fee for the permit the same, and I think we need to step up the enforcement a little bit on the false alarms so that our first responders aren't running out for no reason.
Okay, this came basically, Michelle, your department worked with Jerry. I don't think it should change either. Anyone else think we should just leave it the fee at 25 for residential?
I'm fine for that.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to strike the proposed 50, reduce it back to the 25, and other than that, everything else will fly, and we can approve it at the next meeting.
That's an annual fee?
Yes.
Annual, yes. And commercial pays 100.
Could I make one point?
Yeah.
We discussed this briefly, I think, at the last meeting. There was a suggestion by the code enforcement officer that it be required that the
Fire
alarms
marshal?
be inspected every year.
Yeah, that's,
And I just think, being a homeowner, I know that my central station company sends me a note saying, test your alarm system. So I don't know about whether that's going to qualify for having your alarm system inspected. But to have the company come out would be a significant expense to the homeowner.
okay.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with removing that either. Lynn? So in other words, we're not going to require an inspection. If your alarm goes off once or twice, they're going to come out and inspect it anyway. So to force a homeowner to have these fire alarms go out and inspect them every year is not a need.
I think the
I don't-
intent for the inspection was more for commercial, if I recall, but
I think that's the intent, but that's not the way it's written in the code.
yeah.
Okay, so do you want it for the commercial and not residential?
What kind of, how are we doing? Are we having problems with commercial as far as
Only
false
with
alarms?
only with
or
false
We are?
alarms. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, big time.
Well, then, if we're having problems with false alarms on commercial, maybe we should require an inspection for them, but not for residential. I don't know.
I feel like for the false alarms, I don't know that we've been enforcing it in the fees associated with the false alarms.
We never have.
If we improve enforcement and people start getting billed when there's false alarms for a faulty system, chances are they're going to address that.
Yeah, I think we have to do something one way or the other. So if you want to do it by, in that way, more of a punishment, if it keeps going off, then that we should follow up and charge fees so that they fix their system.
Yeah, I know, like the company that I use is out of New Jersey. I don't know of a local central company. So, but I'd be fine taking it out of both as long as we can, and if we can, step up the enforcement. 'cause I
Well,
know there's some-
that's what the purpose of this is being done now for.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll remove that portion. And there was one other thing too, wasn't there the call for the fire, who within the fire department was to make the inspection? It should be done by the building inspector. Well, wasn't it one of them?
Well, I didn't include that in the draft that presented to the town.
Okay, so the final draft does
I
not
took-
have it?
He was going to make the chief of police, chief of the fire department, an enforcement officer.
He's not.
He's not and shouldn't be, I don't think, under the
Okay,
circumstances.
and that's not in the final
But I
version?
did not put in that in this draft.
Okay. I didn't see the strikeout. Okay, that flies as well. Okay. Any other comments? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public hearing with those changes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second public hearing this evening is about parking and standing and stopping on Railroad Avenue, Town of Southeast. That's from the village, basically the train station, which is in the village, to the village line, and from the village line to Route 22, which is the town, there'll be no parking. I make a motion to open the public hearing and waive the reading.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone here to speak to that this evening? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, do you want to explain briefly, I mean,
What we're doing?
yeah, what we're doing, just so people know?
They know.
I don't think it should be
Don't park.
too mysterious.
I just pretty much, okay.
Right.
In the village of Brewster, from the train station to the village line, which is just before Electric Zone Field. It's the field it's where the old sewer used to be for the village, and they moved it up. So from the village line to Route 22, people are now parking, so they don't have to pay the fee to go into the city. And they're backing out. I don't recall of any accidents. There's a trail there to be used. It's called the
Diverting Reservoir
Diverting
Trail.
Reservoir Trail. We're going to leave 6 spots open. We can't chalk tires based on a ruling by the Supreme Court recently, so we can't do that. And there's no parking. Now, I'm telling you right now, as soon as we have no parking here, guess where they're going to park? Over here. And then we'll have to come and make another one.
Right, but we will have signs that say 3-hour parking, right?
Yes,
Whether-
yeah,
right.
it's all, I already marked it out once before.
Right.
We know which one are, we'll save signs, we're not gonna put up 100 signs, doesn't make sense. No parking between signs.
Right. Okay,
And 6 spaces are gonna be reserved for the trail,
yep.
and the rest of it is basically no parking. And 90% of the vehicles are from Connecticut, so,
Is that a town road?
no,
No.
it's state.
And county, it's really
No,
blurry.
County is the bridge, Morton-Thorpe Bridge,
Right.
that's county,
Okay,
and then the other is state.
And we can legislate on a county road what can be done?
Well, it's not, we're not
it's our
legislating.
property.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the state's, and it's a state road,
Okay.
and they
maintain
have a
the road.
shoulder, but they still can't park on the shoulder.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Okay, good. We're going past the shoulder and
right,
no parking.
yeah. I
They're
think
used
it's
to it, they
really-
just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's important, so.
Okay. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda this evening is a presentation by the Brewster Central School about the 2019-2020 budget. Lynn, would you like to introduce?
Gee, thanks, Tony. I'd be happy to. I'd like to thank the school for coming tonight. We have Victor Carlson, I hope I've got everything correct, who is going to do the presentation on finance. I know we've gotten a lot of questions, as we usually do, about the budget, and more so this year because of this, the political calendar and out knocking doors. So I think this will be very helpful to us and hopefully to anyone watching this or anyone in the audience. So, and with that, do you want me to introduce would you introduce everyone else? But you have to do it from up here.
And why don't
sorry.
you just kind of stand so people can
Yes,
see you
please.
as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But Victor needs to be at the mic, so.
I'm on this team, I can't join
Yes.
yours. You're lucky.
So thank you very much for having us here this evening. Town
Now,
Supervisor
you others
Hay.
don't have to stand there, you can
You
sit
can
there.
walk around.
Well,
If you want, you can take the, and you
They're
can,
going, it's like a
oh, they're
it's
gonna
like a singing
speak?
group, so they're
Okay,
not
yes.
singing.
good.
okay, all
We're
right.
not gonna
We don't have an organ.
sing. So thank you very much, Town Supervisor Hay. Obviously, Councilwoman Eckard, Councilman Larka, and Councilman Lord. We thank you very much for allowing us to take a little bit of time just to go over some of the important components of our 2019-2020 school budget. First and foremost, you're probably aware of this profile of graduate, which is what we've been spending our time since 2016 talking about and trying to embed in our curriculum and instruction, assessment, professional learning, and the learning environment. These are the skills that are not just good to have, but are essential for our students to have, all students, K through 12, whether you have an IEP or you're an English language learner, it doesn't matter. These are essential skills for success in life, work, and future learning. So all of our entire budget is organized around supporting this framework and supporting the needs of all of our students. Regardless of where you look or what you read across this Lower Hudson region, you're going to see some form of these skills. And we're very happy that we feel as though our time and our efforts are really dedicated to the implementation of these skills, and we thank our Board of Education who obviously approved them and who've supported us in ensuring that we can make the goals of the plan of the profile of a graduate come to fruition. So what we're going to attempt to do is to go over, probably to start with some of the most important tenets first, and what we'll try to do is Mr. Carlson, Ms. Cacao, and Mr. Seaman will toggle around, we'll all toggle around and sort of accentuate or punctuate some of the important details. But it's, as a tiny bit of a summary, this year's budget is really, I guess, an extraordinary circumstance because of a number of factors. One is, for the first time in a very long time, we've had a decrease in our contribution to the teachers' retirement system. The teachers' retirement system is a percentage that we don't have any knowledge of and nor control of. Last year, for example, we had a 8% increase. That was our 18-19 school budget, and that affected us in very significant ways. We weren't able to replace positions that were made vacant due to retirements or other forms of attrition, that people who didn't come back. We didn't lay anyone off, but it was equally impactful for us. This year, the decrease for us, it's a decrease, 16.6% decrease in the contribution to that TRS fund. That is significant. That is not something that happens regularly. The other major factor that impacted us positively was the fact that we have some new businesses, commercial businesses that have come onto the tax roll. And I'll leave it at that, so I'll have Mr. Carlson to delve into that. So I'll let you dangle on that in terms of the new commercial properties and how that helps us to put forth a budget that greatly increases the numbers of teachers and staff members who are working with our students, and therefore improving the overall quality of education in Brewster schools.
So just a quick summary. So our proposed budget is $101 million, which is an increase of 3%. And the tax levy associated with that is 4.06%. And I want to note that 4.06% is within the tax cap. That is our calculated tax cap based on the state's formula. The tax cap being a benchmark set forth by the state starting in the 12-13 year, and is also applicable, of course, to towns, counties, villages. So talking about that 4.06% tax levy, again, it just requires a simple majority vote, 50% plus one, in order for it to pass. It is a tax cap compliant budget, despite the fact that it's above 2%. So there's still a misnomer out there that the tax cap limits increases to just 2%. However, 2% is just one component of a multi-step formula that, again, all of the different local governments and school districts need to contend with. As Dr. Henning mentioned, what's impacting our tax cap significantly for next year is an increase in the commercial tax base, which is a good thing for both town, county, and school district, or all three. So when we talk about that increase in the commercial tax base, the most notable addition is, as you're aware, is the Algonquin Natural Gas Transmission Station, which was constructed, I believe, towards the middle of 2018. And that came onto the tax roll in the 18-19 school year. So as a result of that new commercial property, there was actually a decrease in the tax rates in both Patterson and Southeast because that commercial business was now contributing $883,000 more to the school taxes, which diluted the tax shares of all of the residential properties. So if residents had their assessment remained constant and all other factors remained constant, they actually saw a decrease in their tax bills, despite the fact that last year, 18-19, the school district had a small tax levy increase of just 2.2%. So in spite of that 2.2%, they actually paid less in school taxes. And again, that's attributable to the Algonquin Natural Gas Transmission Station and also several other commercial properties that came on. I believe in that year, there was also Ace Endico and the Brewster Honda showroom and a few others. So again, as I mentioned before, tax rates actually decreased in this 18-19 year because of Algonquin. However, there is a timing difference between the state's recognition of Algonquin coming on and the town's recognition of Algonquin coming on. So really the effect needs to be measured over a 2-year period. For tax rate purposes, Algonquin impacted the 18-19 school year. For tax cap purposes, it's deferred until the 19-20 school year. So the state is really catching up with the town that recognized this, this new commercial property immediately. Again, it diluted the tax burden of residential properties and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So we have a budget advisory committee, and naturally the question the budget advisory committee posed to us is, well, what's going to happen in 1920? Are my taxes going to go up by 4%? And unfortunately, the answer is we don't know. And that's because the tax rates are based on the final assessment roll, which you know is not approved or finalized until the middle of August. So each year, the Board of Education adopts the tax warrant, which sets in place the tax rates, but that process doesn't happen until the middle or end of August, and it's typically the third week in August in which the Board of Ed approves the tax warrant, and I think it's probably the first week in August where each of the towns within the school district, Southeast, Patterson, and Carmel, finalize their assessment roll. So while we're uncertain of what the tax rate impact will be, we know that there are constantly changes in the assessment rolls, and again, we need to measure this over a 2-year period. So while 18-19, excuse me, saw a decrease in tax rates, 19-20 is not yet defined and won't be until August. So with all of that said, just quick summary of our budget. The tax levy makes up the lion's share of our budget. Almost 75% of our revenues come from the tax levy, $77 million. Local sources, which are basically interest income, pilot revenue, which the town also receives, and other miscellaneous revenues make up about $2.1 million. State and federal aid has increased just $400,000 or 2.2%. Basically, our state aid is not keeping up with the increase in our operation costs and hasn't for many years. Appropriated fund balance is a portion of our savings account that we use as a revenue to offset the tax levy. And again, our total revenue budget, $101 million, an increase of 3%. And where does the funding come from? Basically, 95% of our budget is controlled by the state, either through the tax cap or through state aid. So the state controls the tax cap formula, which basically makes up 75% of our revenue budget, and they also control our state aid allocation, which makes up another 20%. So really 95% of our revenue budget is out of our control. And the school district only controls, and I use the word control very loosely, 5% of our revenue budget, and it's because those resources are finite. Interest income and our savings, of course, are finite resources.
Should we save our questions to the end or as we go, which is better for
I
you?
think you can go ahead.
Sure.
Because any
Yeah,
number of us
yeah.
will be able to answer.
Okay, thank you. I just have a question on state aid. I had just read, and State Senator Harkin was quoted as saying that the school district, the Brewster district, will be getting an additional $1 million. Is that factored into this year, next year? And I know it's allocated for, I think part of it is what, for non-English speaking programs and things? Or what do you know about it, and when does that help us out?
Are you familiar with?
I love hearing that, but we don't We haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
So what we do receive, and we've received for a few years, is a community aid grant in the amount of $150,000 that was made available for us to support programs for students whose first language is not English, or students who needed additional literacy services. And we're primarily using it to fund before school, after school programs, those kinds of things.
Okay, all right.
We look forward to the $1 million.
I'll talk to him, but it was a lot of different schools were getting help from the state.
Was that over a multi-year period, or was that part of
It
another
didn't
allocation?
specify that it was, but I'll talk
Yeah.
to him and find out, because we'll take tax relief wherever we can get it.
Yeah,
And I know you'll
absolutely.
take the funding for the schools. so
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, and just to touch on our state aid, one of the challenges that we have with our state aid is that the allocation that the state says that we're going to receive doesn't actually amount to the actual state aid that we do receive. It's often based on estimates at the state and not reflective of what we actually receive. On average, over the past 4 years, we've received about $400,000 each year, less than what the state says that they're going to send us. So while they provide us with a state aid estimate, we need to take that estimate and really analyze it to figure out what we're actually going to receive, because again, we're often shortchanged by New York State. And there's a whole other litany of issues with the state and their formulas and their inability to actually fund schools in the manner in which they said that they would. Each year, we're shortchanged by several $1 million based on the state's inability to follow its own formula. So our revenue budget, of course, is built on what we will actually receive.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just quickly going through the expenditure budget. General support increased by about 4.3%, and that's due to an increase in our infrastructure, our technology equipment, and updating our servers and all the important computer equipment necessary to protect student data, personally identifiable information, and make sure that our network is secure and accessible to our students. Instruction represents the largest increase in our budget, as we've invested heavily in new teaching positions, an increase of $1.6 million. Dr. Henning will discuss in greater detail the staffing positions that are proposed in next year's budget. Transportation increased just $100,000 or 2%. Employee benefits, which typically consumes our budget increase each year, is actually only increasing by 3.5%. As Dr. Henning mentioned, we were fortunate this year to have a decrease in the pension contribution for the teachers' retirement system, as she mentioned. Again, something that is beyond the school district's control. It's a rate that's set forth by the actuarial board of the teachers' retirement system, and the school districts are required to contribute the amount determined by the state, very similar to the employee retirement system that applies to the towns, counties, and local governments. Yes.
Did they give a reason why it decreased?
So the TRS rate is actually based on what they call a 5-year smoothing average, and it's heavily reliant on the stock market and the fund's investment portfolio, all of which are managed by the New York State Controller. So because of the improvement in the stock market and the economy, they were able to reduce the contribution rate from the school districts and rely more on the investment's performance. Unfortunately, I mentioned that it's a 5-year smoothing average, but the reality is it's been far from smooth over the past 5 years. It's been a true roller coaster, and as Dr. Henning mentioned, last year, the 18-19 year, we were contending with an 8% increase. And it may not seem like a lot, but 8% results in about several hundred thousands of dollars of additional money that's now going to Albany rather than being spent in the classroom. So again, this year, 1920, that's approaching us, it's a significant benefit that the rate has gone down so much. So instead of sending money to Albany, we're able to invest it in the classroom. But again, it's beyond our control. The TRS actuarial board sets those rates that have the mandated contributions by the school districts.
It's not dependent upon how many teachers are in your employ or how many are in retirement?
Well, the rate is applied to teacher salaries. Okay. So the rate is applied to the salary base of the teachers on staff.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Debt service is decreasing slightly, just 1.3%. Transfers to special aid fund represents the funding for our summer special education program that's mandated based on students' IEPs or individual educational plans. And we have a $100,000 transfer to the capital fund so that we can upgrade the doors, the exterior doors, and the locks at JFK Elementary School. Total expenditure budget, again, $101 million, an increase of 3%. And if you take a look at our budget by functional category, the majority of our budget is spent on general education instruction, followed by special education instruction. Employee benefits makes up the next largest portion. And what's not really shown on this slide is that salaries and benefits make up approximately 80% of our spending. So obviously we're a service agency, so therefore that's where the majority of our funding goes to support our students. Debt service makes up just 7.4%, and all other categories make up less than 7%. And I'll turn it over to Dr.
Would that chart have looked different in last year?
It's very similar. Last year, likely we would have seen employee benefits up slightly, but it doesn't fluctuate too much from this. Again, the lion's share of our budget is spent on instruction, both general education, special education, and unfortunately employee benefits that are required either by contract or state mandate through the pension system.
Thank you.
Before we go into the exciting part of what the additional revenue will support in our district, I'd like to invite Trustee Cacao and Mr. Seaman, and part of our advisory board, to comment on any parts of this that that you would like to emphasize.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Cacao. I'm currently a Board of Education member on the Brewster School District. And I just wanted to point out that the decision to move forward with the 4.06 tax levy was not taken lightly by the board. The board really did scrutinize the budget and look at all aspects of it to see where we could cut, where we could save, what we needed to move forward with. One of the things that we did was really take into account the Budget Advisory Committee's stance on the budget proposal. The committee this year is new. We realized after last year that they needed to get in more community members, we needed to bring in parents, and we needed to have a committee who became knowledgeable about the budget and make recommendations to the board on what to move forward with. I sat on the committee, but I did not weigh in on it, but Scott Seaman did participate on it and could speak a little bit more to it. But in terms of the board's position, we want to bring back as many teaching and staff positions as we can, which is why we are moving forth with the tax levy of 4.06.
Thank you. My name is Scott Seaman. I am a member of the Budget Advisory Committee. The big point that we want to push with the increase, while we need to be careful of being stewards of the funds, and it's a large impact on the community, we're able to finally get ahead for our students. I have an older daughter who is actually graduating college in 15 days, and the high school she went through is not the same as the high school my younger children are going through now. We have an opportunity to return teachers to the classroom, to decrease class sizes, to bring in mental health assistance for our students who have never had more trauma. Just overall, the world that these kids live in is much more difficult and strenuous than it's ever been. So we need to be able to provide them with everything we can to get them advanced. Also, to put teachers back in the classrooms, we're able to add the labs back to all the sciences. This makes our school competitive. This makes our school interesting to people that wish to move into the community, and that'll be affected in our property values as we become more of a school people want to go to than one people are just sending their kids to. So whatever we can do to aid the children, make them more benefits, and this also prepares them for not only college, but for technical schools, for going into the services, for going into individual businesses. That's the objective behind what we're looking to do. Thank you.
So this budget is very much a student-centered, child-centered budget. Each of the schools is going to benefit from increases in staff. So starting with district-wide, a few really important positions that we're able to add. As you know, we're in the throes of a registration verification process to make sure that the people who are coming to our schools actually live in the district. So one of the important changes that we're making is instead of having a person who functioned at the front desk as a registrar who served both as the person who was centralizing all the registration processes, which we actually started in December of 2017. So we were already aware from our individual registrars across the 4 buildings that, we were concerned about potentially things falling between the cracks. So this provided the glue between the cracks so that we have one person who's bilingual, who is receiving any new entrants into the district. That person is also only concentrating on that function now. That person is not the receptionist, but that person's sole responsibility is to manage the intake of new families, and to monitor all the paperwork and processes, and to communicate with the appropriate other staff people who are responsible for either hearings, residency hearings, and/or investigations. The second important person that we're adding is a supervisor of the registration and the residency process. Again, a lot of effort has been underway since July of last year, actually, when we started the whole registration verification process. We don't want to take steps back. We want to keep moving forward and maintain all the processes and new systems that have been adapted and implemented as a result. As you know, we have our own bus garage, and it's a very busy place. In any given year, we could have over 600 requests, different requests from parents in terms of where children are dropped off each day. So we need a dispatcher there who can communicate with bus drivers if there's a change or something's forgotten. So that's a very important new addition to our bus garage. As you know, we added new square footage as a result of our construction bond, so that requires that we maintain the property and make sure that it's clean and pleasant and always looks its best, so that we, again, are using the resources to make sure that we don't let erosion and neglect, cause us any undue need for funding at the end. The Assistant Child Nutrition Director is a result of a grant that Mr. Carlson and Ms. Hancock, who's formerly Ms. Ash, who's our food services or child nutrition supervisor, through a Chef Ann grant, which they applied for and received. We were able to use the study and the findings to hire an assistant child nutrition director. That person's not paid for out of the general budget. That comes from the revenue generated from the meal program. So that's a very important addition, and again, not a cost to the taxpayer. So those are the district-wide position that will benefit the various offices and all the programs and children served by the district. So a total of increase of 3.6 positions.
Those would be full-time?
Well, the district registrar is full-time, the supervisor registration is a 0.6, so that's a part-time, maintenance is full-time, and the child nutrition, a child assistant person is a full-time person.
And what kind of range of salary are we looking at here? Do you know?
For which position?
Well, is there a range, district registrar, for example?
We have a salary scale that we researched, as we do with any position, especially if it's a new position that we've never had. So we canvass the region, the state, and come up with a number, and of course that's matched with the skills and the responsibilities of the person and the levels of knowledge or experience or background or certification that's required. So the position will require a certification as an administrator, because that person is overseeing residency hearings, so they do need to function at a fairly high level.
Can we go back on that to the past slide? Approximately on the supervisory registration residency, how's that program worked out so far? How many students have you found that don't actually participate actively in this town? Have you found any?
Sure. So each year, this is not a new process. The district has undertaken residency investigations forever. Each year, there are a number of students that are found to be non-resident.
How many about?
This year, I would have to check. The last update to the Board of Education was made by our residency officer, and I believe it was in December. It's posted on our website. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's on the school district's website under their residency verification webpage. I want to say there's a handful of students to date. At that point in time, I believe that over 80% of the students had been verified. And the final report is going to be prepared and presented to the district's residency task force at their meeting, which is at the end of June, I believe June 24th or 27th.
Now, you are aware the town has a rental registration law and others that can track children going to schools, et cetera. Do you use our services in any way?
Yes, we have put our registrar in contact with the assessor's office to research certain properties.
And the building inspector as well?
Yes, I believe our registrar has reached out as well.
I do sit on the residency task force, and I have recommended in the past that we that the town assist in this process. And I don't know that we've been taken up on that as well as we could have. And to the residency or the rental registrations, I don't think that in talking to Art Holtzman, who I believe is the registration supervisor, that is not exactly part of the process to confirm if a student lives here or not. Nor is there significant verification with the building department to make sure that single-family homes are lining up with the information that the registrar is receiving. And, I extend this offer again publicly that, we would be happy to assist in any way that we could, in any capacity that we could.
And just as a clarification, in order for the school district to exclude a student under New York State regulations, it requires a significant amount of evidence be provided. Just 10 years ago, the burden of proof used to be on the resident. With the update in regulations, the burden of proof is now on the school district. So they've really flipped the burden of proof. And in order to exclude a student, what the school district does, it employs a private investigator which performs surveillance. And that surveillance is the most compelling evidence that a school district can use to exclude a student. So in each of our processes, when we have a residency investigation, it includes surveillance, again, the most compelling evidence to make certain that when a student is excluded, the New York State Education Department will support the district's determination.
Yeah, and just to clarify, in no way am I trying to exclude children from the school, but, to Supervisor Hayes' question of, are you working with the assessor and our rental registration laws and the building inspector, I don't know that we are, and I think I take it from a little bit of a different position where there could be safety issues if there's overcrowding or things of that nature where the town is not alerted at all. But that's where I'm approaching that from.
Our reach is limited to what we can do under the New York State law.
FERPA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I always thought that if it wouldn't be a violation of FERPA if no personally identifiable information was shared. But if we do know, if the school district knows of a dwelling that may be overcrowded or something like that, I do think that we should re-explore the FERPA limitations to see if there is something that can be done so that we can ensure that the children in the district are living in a safe environment.
When we learn that there's a potential issue related to safety, health, and welfare, we are obligated to contact the Child Protective Services. So that's our venue if we ever know, whether it's through child neglect, whether it's absenteeism, whether we know that whether children are not coming to school well fed or clothed, or they tell us something about their living conditions, then we can exercise our obligation as mandated reporters to contact the Child Protective Services. But other than that agency, it would be overreach and, quite frankly, would put the district in jeopardy, legal jeopardy, were we to be acting in a manner that is that we're legally not obligated, legally not able to exercise. So we do honor the law, and we do hear what you're saying, Mr. Larker. But I think we have really extended all avenues with our legal counsel, who's been deeply involved with us on exploring what we can and can't do.
Thank you.
At JFK Elementary School, we are increasing through the 4.0 tax cap levy, adding additional 5 positions, which is very important. As you know, our youngest learners definitely need to make sure that we have all available resources to ensure that they leave the 3rd grade reading to learn, not learning to read. The elementary school counselors, as Mr. Seaman referenced, are really critical. You'll see a position both at the JFK Elementary School as well as at the CV Star Intermediate School that's been added. Other districts have for some time had school counselors at the elementary level. Of course, we have them at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, but this would be a new important addition for us. Obviously, as you know, there are many increased mental health needs of students and families and social emotional learning, and we want to make sure that our counselors are there to support our children as they travel through our system and become successful learners and graduate to go on and be successful contributing members of society. Teacher aid is important as well. Those are people who work in our certified programs. Our students with IEPs typically have teacher aides in their classrooms, so we're able to increase propose an additional 3 positions. K-5 math specialist is very important. As you know, over the last 5 years, we've had a shift in our state standards. They were Common Core and now the next generation learning standards. With that with that change, we are also shifting to a new curriculum resource. So in doing so, what we know from our own practices as well as from the professional literature is that we have to support our professionals to learn any new tools for teaching or strategies. We just can't turn over the resource and say, go at it. We have to support them. So the addition of the K-5 math specialist is an essential part of the success of that new math resource. At the CV Star Intermediate School, I mentioned the counselor already. The other proposal that we are making, as you know, Brewster Central Schools takes the safety of our students and our staff very seriously. We are very grateful that our Board of Education has in the past made available in the budget our ability to have a school resource officer that is shared between the CV Star Intermediate School and the H.H. Wells Middle School. This current year, 18-19, we did add a school patrol officer to the CV Star Intermediate School. So we have this SRO in Wells Middle School, the SPO in the CV Star Intermediate School. We want to shift the SPO to the high school. And the reason that we want to do that is that, as you know, it's becoming pretty common that weekly there's a school shooting or a shooting of some sort. And we need to make sure that we have the equivalent in terms of our SROs in all of our buildings, and especially for our younger children who can't necessarily get into a classroom and barricade the classroom. They need the adults, and they need someone there who's active. And what we're proposing is that we shift the school patrol officer to the high school, because again, in this era in the high school where children are engaged in a number of things that we wish they wouldn't be engaged in and they weren't engaged in, having an extra set of eyes there to help assist that and to manage that would be helpful. Again, I mentioned the math specialist, the teacher aide, and then a computer operations aide, which is helpful in managing all the different sorts of data that we're required to handle and make it useful and available to our teachers who have to use that to make decisions about teaching and learning. In the Wells Middle School, we're increasing one teaching position. The teacher of English to speakers of other languages, also known as TESOL, is an important addition. We're required. It's one of the mandated services along with services for students with IEPs. We must, under ESSA, ensure that the students are making progress every year, regardless of the level of education that they may have in the country of origin. We have to make sure that they are meeting expectations, although unrealistic, but we have to make sure that they're educated in the school and that we provide them with the appropriate instructor to ensure that that happens. So that's the increase at the Wells Middle School. At the high school, as Mr. Seaman referenced, there's a great deal of additional support to enhance and build our science program. Going back maybe 8 or 9 years, when there was a very lean budget year, I think, across the country, and a lot of districts were making some really difficult choices, which resulted in the reduction of staff. This year at the high school, for the proposal for the 1920 school year is that, again, we add a teacher, a TESOL teacher to assist our students who are coming in, many of them coming in as older teenagers who may have the equivalent of a 5th grade education from their country of origin, but yet we are required, as we should, to provide them with an education that will help them to go on and make progress and potentially graduate and go on and choose a career of their choice or go on to college. We're adding a world language teacher. a bilingual science teacher. Again, it's very important for our students to have instruction available, and especially if there are 20 or more students in one grade that speak the same language, we must provide a bilingual educator. So that's a requirement under New York State. In science, we're adding 2 more positions, and which again, Mr. Seaman indicated earlier, that allows us to ensure that all of our students have labs. It's unheard of not to have labs. That's a very essential part of being a well-educated student in science and going on to STEM careers, is being able to have an authentic experience where they're applying concepts to real-world problems. So we're very excited about that. A school monitor, which is very important in terms of being in the hallways and being visible. As our children pass from classroom to classroom, we want to make sure that they are obviously being very good citizens in the hallways or in those public areas such as the cafeterias or in the PAC. Again, I referenced the school security officer. It will enhance the Deputy Kreisky, who's already there as a school resource officer, the SPO, who's the current SPO at CV Star, will be in the high school. He will be present in hallways. He'll be visiting all the places that some of our students find to hide and to potentially make some bad choices. So this will make sure that there are many more eyes on them to ensure that they spend more time in school and not find themselves in, on the receiving end of some consequence. In terms of the PPS staff, and that's primarily the staff who support our students with IEPs, we're adding 2 special educators at JFK. Again, under the PPS department, which I think has the largest increase, this allows us to educate children with IEPs in the district. There's some children who, because we don't have the adequate staff or services, sometimes have to be educated outside of the district. Educating them outside of the district has 2 sort of flaws. Sometimes we have to. If we don't have a service, if we don't have the educators, that's one thing, because the needs of the students outweigh what we can provide. But if we can build the program, if we can hire the staff to educate children with IEPs, we need to do that. And all of our children need to be educated in their home district. So this budget and these additional positions allow us to do that. You'll see teaching assistants who also are very, very important in those classrooms that allow, again, the special educator and the general educator to differentiate instruction and to make sure that there's many more flexible ways in which students can learn. We're adding a special educator at the CV Star Intermediate School, plus a teaching assistant. Again, that's very important. It's not a good to have, it's a must have. And this allows us to provide a least restrictive learning environment, meaning that children are not spending an abundance of their time in overly segregated environments within their own school. So this model allows us to do this, or this staffing allows us to push children out with their grade level peers so that they're not spending a lot of their days with the same group of students, but with the whole class to the extent possible. A special educator being added at the high school. Above that, 2.5 teaching assistants at the middle school, and then a teaching assistant at the high school, plus a school psychologist who will also be the CSC chair, so that's a combined position. Again, making sure that we're able to serve children, review their programs, make changes, give them chances to potentially go into other less restrictive learning environments because we're monitoring their program and providing more opportunities. A behavioral analyst is really essential, especially if you're dealing with children who have a range of potential behavioral needs. This person works not only with the child, but the family and with all the staff, the teachers, the teaching assistants, the aides, the administrators. They're an essential component to the success of keeping children in the district. And a nurse, again, some of our children are coming with medical needs as well as a need to dispense medication at school, so we need a certified medical professional to be able to do that.
So, are there cost savings associated with those expenses?
Absolutely. One of the programs will allow us to potentially tuition in 2 students from another district.
Great.
That's the model. So by having the staff, we have the opportunity to build programs that support our children, create the least restrictive learning environment, but also provide a revenue stream. We are also happy to be able to add an assistant director of athletics, physical education, and health. That person is going to be really key to working with the athletic director in building in the required mental health curriculum that is mandated actually last summer by New York State. Again, throughout the curriculum and the life of students, everywhere they are, there's an increased emphasis on making available mental health resources, making children aware of the resources, and making children feel unashamed if they have needs, and making sure that there are staff available to assist and support them. So that is another vital position. So in total, 22.1 instructional positions we're proposing in this 2020 school budget, as well as 8.5 non-instructional positions that are positions such as the dispatchers and so forth.
Could I ask if the school population, how it's grown over the years or decreased? Where are we now in relation to last year and projection for next year?
This year's student enrollment is about 3,060 students. And it vacillates around that. Obviously, if you go back to 2008, 2009, we might have had 3,800 students. But we're no different from other schools across the state and country where they've experienced a decrease in enrollment. What we are seeing, where there's a decrease in enrollment, there's an increase in the types of students who are enrolling who require more services. So we're experiencing an increase in our students whose first language is not English, who are coming with, as I said, significant gaps in their formal education from their country of origin. It takes more time and more resources to educate a 17-year-old who's coming in with a third-grade education. They need to stay in school longer. They need more adults who can work with them in very specialized ways. So that's the increase that we're experiencing. And I think at this point in this school year, we're up to about 9% of our student population are eligible for those services under Part 154, which is the governed students whose first language is not English. Our classification rate for students with IEPs remains, around the same range, about 13%, 13.4%, and if you look across the state, that's pretty typical. But it's really that the group of children who need more time and who are not, because of the gaps in their education, formal education from the country of origin, and their age, that requires more resources to ensure that we are meeting the needs of those learners.
So again, just a quick summary of our general fund budget, which is our Proposition 1 for May 21st. General fund budget, $101 million, an increase of 3%, and the tax levy associated with that is $77.1 million, an increase of 4.06%, again, within the state's tax cap formula. Proposition number 2 requests a borrowing of $753,000 to purchase 7 school buses. The district employed a fleet replacement plan over the past 7 or 8 years, where we replace an incremental number of school buses each year to avoid significant spikes in school buses that occurred in the past. So dating back to the 01-02 school year, there was one year in which the district was forced to purchase 23 buses at one time due to a significant need. By purchasing a limited number of vehicles each year, it obviously restricts the growth in need and also maintains a level fleet age. We have a long-range plan which the district follows, and this is incorporated in the district's long-range financial planning. The first of 5 annual payments isn't due until the 2021 school year, so the district is able to defer the first cost. So this proposition has absolutely no impact on the general fund budget, no impact on the tax levy in the upcoming 1920 school year. The first of 5 annual payments will begin the subsequent year, 2021, and will be paid off over 5 years in the same manner as a car loan. Because the district has employed a fleet replacement plan, the borrowing from 5 years ago is now expired. We finished paying off that borrowing, which will then be replaced by this amount, limiting the impact on the taxpayer in the 2021 year. So this is really embedded in the tax levy. Proposition number 3 requests the transfer of savings to fund a capital project at absolutely no cost to the taxpayers. Again, it's authorizing the school district to take funds out of their accumulated fund balance, which is essentially their savings account, and apply that funds to complete a capital project to install HVAC at JFK Elementary School, which is the only building in the district that does not have significant air conditioning. It's our smallest population. And as we noticed, or as we learned over the fall of 2018, there were a number of school districts, mostly up in Dutchess County, that experienced a significant mold epidemic due to the excessive heat and moisture. And those districts undertook several $100,000, if not $1 million mold remediation projects, which were not covered by insurance, and unfortunately cost a lot of school districts out of pocket. This HVAC system would obviously provide cooled, chilled, conditioned air to the school building, improving the learning environment for our small students, and significantly reducing the potential for mold to develop. So again, absolutely no cost to the taxpayer. It's simply authorizing the district to transfer savings into the capital fund to pay for a HVAC project. So as we prepare this budget, as is with the town, there are unknown future variables, and we're preparing our budget. We begin 18 months before the end of the fiscal year in which it applies to. So typically, as we begin the process, we are not aware of what our state aid allocation is. It comes due with the the state's enacted budget on April 1st, so we now know what our state aid allocation is. Enrollment is fluid, but we'll have a better understanding in September. We do employ an enrollment projection study each year, which is available on our website, and our enrollment projection is pretty steady with minor decreases in enrollment. Again, as Dr. Henning mentioned, nothing different than any other school district throughout the state. I believe the district's enrollment has decreased by an average of just 1% a year over the past maybe 10 years. E&L classifications and special education classifications are fluid, but we usually have a handle on those by the beginning of the summer as the annual reviews for our special needs students are completed in the spring. Unanticipated expenditures are a constant reality for the school district, as with the town. Year-end fund balance isn't finalized until August after our financial statement audit is completed, and as we discussed earlier, the final assessed values will not be available until August. So the important dates for us to remember, this presentation, which was first delivered on April 23rd, I believe was our 5th budget presentation. Prior to that, we actually went on a tour, well, not a tour, but we hosted a number of Budget 101 workshops in an effort to engage the community and provide more information about the budget process, the things that are included in the budget, the requirements of the school district, the challenges, the opportunities, and we've posted each of those presentations to our website as well. So again, this presentation that we're representing this evening was the 5th of our budget presentations. Coming up on May 14th is our informational budget hearing, and May 21st is the annual budget vote at Brewster High School, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., again, Tuesday, May 21st. I mentioned our website. We have a ton of material on the website, all of our presentations of the past. The budget statement, which is a significant document, has a lot of supplemental information, is available on our website. And again, all of these resources of each of our presentations, including the Budget 101 workshops.
We've also made some other ways to engage our public. Not everyone reads the newspaper. Not everyone is able to come to a budget board meeting. And so we've created budget videos. Each budget manager, that means every principal, an assistant principal, and director, made a 1-minute video. Some people couldn't make it a minute, so it was 2 minutes. And it's basically discussing what is in their individual budgets, because it's not just that big number that you see, that there are departments and budget managers who are overseeing what's needed and necessary to educate children well in each of their buildings or respective departments. We've also, Victor and I made 5 or 6 podcasts, which are really summaries of the presentations that we've done at board meetings. So it typically follows a board meeting that we make about maybe a 15, 20 minute. I think the longest is maybe 27, 28 minutes in length. Again, as another mechanism for engaging the public. So for people who are commuting perhaps, or if you have a half an hour commute and you are bored with the news, you can listen to Victor and me. and learn a few things about many of the things that you've heard Mr. Seaman, Trustee Cacao, Mr. Carlson, and I talk about. So all of that information is actually being pushed out this week. So we're every day sending out a couple of what we call budget minute videos, along with a podcast and a link to our website, so that our public can see and have, again, other ways before May 21st that they can learn about different components of the budget and have their questions answered. We actually have one more presentation on Saturday. That's Saturday, May 11th. It's a new opportunity for us. Other districts have traditionally used Saturday as a format because not everyone has time during the week, during an evening, to come in. And so we're hoping that we'll have some families and children and other members of the community to come out on Saturday morning. You can get there at 8:30. 8:30 will allow you to go on a student-led tour of different classrooms and learning environments in the high school that really exemplify these key 21st century skills that we're emphasizing and that are really a passion for us as educators and administrators and parents and board trustees, who are all very much behind making sure that all of our children are exposed to those skills. You'll have that half-an-hour tour. Two of our wonderful students who will talk about their experiences in the high school and show you those learning environments are going to do that quickly and get you back to our iTheater, where we'll host a presentation. We'll pretty much very similar to this, maybe a few more details. And then hopefully, if there are questions and other kinds of ways that we can help our public who attend to understand our budget, we hope that we achieve that. And that concludes our presentation, unless I'll ask Trustee Cacao and Mr. Seaman if they have any other thoughts to share.
Thank you very much for your time, and I would ask that everyone do their civic duty and talk to their neighbors and their friends and come out and vote, however you choose to vote. But we would really like to, see, obviously, from a board perspective, we would like to see our students be successful. So whatever the community can do to support the notion of strong schools, that would be terrific. Thank you so much.
Just wanted to make a note on Proposition 3. We do get building aid on that, about 50% from the state. So the $2 million cost will actually work out over the cost of the repayment to about $1 million.
Anyone from the public have any questions?
Tony, I also do.
You're done. No. Okay. Go ahead, then Tom, go ahead.
Questions, because these are questions we get from the public, and I think they're pertinent and need some explanation. When we have large commercial projects that want to come to this town, and Victor was nice enough to talk to me, Mr. Carlson, I've called to him and I've spoken to Dr. Henning, so thank you all for your time. But tax relief is often promised on some of these big projects, and my question is, and I understand you want to add to, to the schools, and there are positions that need to be filled and added, but is there really truly any tax relief provided, or is that relief incorporated just into a larger budget so that, do you see where I'm going with this? I mean, like the Algonquin, it was about $800,000 in tax relief. I mean, that's how people sell their developments to us, their commercial developments. And when I go door to door, these are, because you're 78 to 80% of our taxes, which people don't understand. Lucky you, they think it's us. So that is my first question, if you could explain that. I really have trouble with this one.
Sure. That's really an assessment question, which would probably be better answered by our assessor. However, essentially what happens when a large commercial property comes into the tax base, it's a good thing for the residential payers because the commercial properties absorb the tax burden of the residential properties. So in other words, just like the town's levy, the school's levy is static. How it's distributed is based on those assessments. And the assessments are based on the value of those properties, deemed by the assessors. And in the school district's case, it's both Patterson, Southeast, and Carmel. So when a large company or a large commercial business comes into the tax base, it's a good thing because it's diluting the tax share of those residential properties. Again, the levy, the amount that the school district collects and the amount that the town collects, that's a static number. So I like to describe it as a pie. So the size of the pie remains the same. The slices of the pie are each taxpayer's assessment. And when a large commercial property comes on, it shrinks the residential slices of the pie, and they're absorbing a greater portion of the pie. So we mentioned the Algonquin property, which is the largest, but it's not the only one, but it's just the largest, so it's the easiest one to reference. So Algonquin came on and paid $883,000 more in school taxes than they did in the prior year. That $883,000 payment was absorbing each of the other residential properties' tax bill, which resulted in a decrease in the tax rates. So again, if a residential property had the same assessment as they did in the prior year, they actually paid less in school taxes because the tax rates went down.
Yeah, but the commercial properties don't bring any children to the schools. That's what people have a problem with.
That's actually, it's a better, it's a benefit to the school district in that there's no additional, if the commercial properties were bringing more students into the school district, then obviously the school district would require more resources to fill a classroom with a teacher and all the other costs associated with educating students. So commercial businesses not adding students to the school system is a good thing.
Well, I've been here for a long time, and I see a lot of times you have layoffs too, which are very troubling. You have, people you have to lay them off. Now we're taking all the monies basically and bringing on new people. So at some point in time, won't they get reversed and have to lay them off again when the benefit is not as good in the future with sales taxes?
The frustrating aspect of school budgeting and local government budgeting is there are so many things that are beyond the school district's control. As we mentioned and highlighted, one issue that the school district contends with each year are pension contributions, which are mandated by New York State Constitution, and the rates are determined by some folks up in Albany, and the amounts are imposed on the school districts. And just like the towns contend with the Employees Retirement System, ERS, for all of its members, and PFRS for firemen and police officers. Those costs are beyond the school districts and the local government's control. So certainly every year it's a challenge, and we do our best in long-range financial planning, but it's so difficult because there are so many variables that are beyond the school district's control. And as we showed, and just like a local government, 95% of our revenues are controlled by the state through either the tax cap or through state aid. So that's really how the school district is limited in its ability to even maintain its programs. So we're certainly not immune to to changes in the economy that would negatively impact the school district, no differently than any other local government.
And in terms of the additional positions, it's an investment in the quality of our school district. Having smaller class sizes, and you'll hear that over and over, is one of the key considerations that young children, families of young children in particular, are interested in. It's a quality of life issue in the classroom that if our teachers are teaching, 18, 17, kindergartners or first graders, that's going to ensure that there are fewer gaps when those children leave kindergarten and go on to first grade and to second grade. They can do more problem-based learning. They can expose children to more higher level thinking and challenging content. They can read more. There are more classroom books and more resources that are available as a result of having a smaller class size. We are more competitive with other districts, or as competitive with other districts where families have a choice in terms of where they'd like to live. They look to the schools as the indicator of quality and whether or not it's worth purchasing a home there on the basis of the schools. Every realtor looks at the school's report card. Every realtor is interested in those numbers. And if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, we're foregoing an opportunity to invest in our school district, thus making it more competitive, thus attracting more homeowners and more potential homeowners who will enroll their children in school and contribute to the tax rolls. So that's how we see those additional positions. The other thing that, another important change that we actually were very surprised that it happened. For a long time, the governor was opposed to districts establishing what's called a teacher's retirement system reserve. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the state law allows local governments and school districts to reserve funds for increases in the employee retirement system increases. For a local school district, the portion of our salaries of teachers far exceeds the portion of our salaries of our support staff. So in the past, there's been no mechanism for a school district to protect itself for spikes in the teacher retirement system pension contributions. New to this year and included in this year's state budget is legislation that allows a school district to reserve funds to protect itself from those spikes in pension contributions. The TRS Actuarial Board has already indicated in one of their press releases that they anticipate an increase in the TRS pension contribution rate in the 2021 school year. So really 2 years out, 1 year after this year's budget that we're discussing this evening. That is a tremendous opportunity for the school district to set aside funds to protect itself from an increase in those TRS costs, which are almost imminent based on the TRS Actuarial Board's reporting. So you mentioned how will the school district prevent layoffs in the future. That is a significant mechanism that never existed before, which will allow the school district to set aside funds to protect itself from that spike in costs. We review our reserves with our finance committee. We prepare reports each June. Our finance committee then recommends to the Board of Education the funding level for our reserves. The TRS reserve now will certainly be one presented to our finance committee and recommended that we increase in anticipation of a spike in 2021, which will protect the district and reduce the potential for layoffs in the 2021 school year.
One other quick question, I think. On the fund, you're going to use the fund balance, some of your fund balance for the capital project. And while I understand there's no additional cost, clearly taxpayers in the past are paying for this.
Yes.
What is the fund balance right now?
The school district's fund balance is about $11 million. The school district maintains an unreserved fund balance, which is essentially a rainy day fund that is available to school districts and municipalities, and that's where the funding would come from. It would come from the district's savings account.
Okay.
Again, at no additional cost to the taxpayer, and as Mr. Seaman mentioned, the district is eligible for building aid, which is slightly more than 50%, so really reducing the net cost down to $1 million and creates a revenue stream for the next 10 to 15 years as that building aid comes in.
Okay. And I would like to say, because I hear a lot, as I said, going door to door, especially this year with the budget, and it's very hard for me to understand. I'm still not really as clear as I should be, which is my fault on new income coming in on commercial properties. But I think if, from what I read, we're ranked about 244th in New York State. And I think that really is of concern when we have a budget that is this big. I don't know how it compares to the 243 school districts that are in front of us. But it is a concern, and I'm sure you've heard it many, many times before. The national ranking is 2817, and that's not as concerning. That sounds pretty good, but the 244th in New York State is a little bit tough when you surpass the $100 million budget. So I do talk to people all the time. I try to explain to people what's going on. So I appreciate your time tonight, and I wish I were a little more clear on I don't quite understand the $883,000 from Algonquin, but I'll keep reading and see. And also, if you pick up this week's Examiner, it does say that on page 8, you'll see that in the area, Ossining will be receiving an additional $3 million in the 2019 to 2020 budget. Peekskill will see $2.4 million increase, and Brewster about $1 million more. So hopefully there's $1 billion put in for state aid, so hopefully we will get that, and somehow our taxes will not go up quite so much. So thank you very, very much.
Anyone from the public?
Hi, Lori Bell. I am the town assessor, but the questions I have are as a Brewster School District taxpayer. I have a series of questions. I was making notes as you guys were making your presentation, so do you want me to summarize them or go one by one?
I guess one by one.
So Lynn, you mentioned, you were asking about the number of students, whether or not the enrollment has gotten larger or declined. So that was a good answer. I had a question about classroom size. You mentioned about the kindergarten, 17 to 18. Is that the average classroom size that we currently have or that we're aiming for? Like, what is the current classroom size? Because when I was in school, it was like 28 kids per classroom.
The class sizes for children in kindergarten through second grade, I'm sorry, through third grade, ranges between 18 to 21. That's our range, I believe. I can send you the exact policy, so this is off the top of my head. For grades 4 and 5, you might even have that, right, Mr. Carlson?
I do.
Excellent. It can go up to 26 students. 25, 26.
I don't have our policy on our
Okay, that's,
projection.
okay, the projection. So for the 1920 school year, the average class size for kindergarten is 22.2, for first grade 21.8, and second grade 21. So we are certainly at the end of the range, which is why those new positions are so important for us. In CV Star, which would be grades 3 through 4, the range is about, I think about 24 to 26. So in grade 3, it's 20 students. That's the projection for 1920. In third grade, fourth grade, 24. In fifth grade, 24.7. In the H.H. Wells Middle School, the range is higher. It can go up to 30 in grades 6 through 12. And certainly that is not a desirable end. So and the class sizes are different at the secondary level. We actually reporting them by subject area. So in an average English class in the intermediate school, the class size is 23.6. In the average math class, 25.5, science, 25.8, social studies, 26, and world language, 26.1. In Brewster High School, again, reported by subject area, and in the average English class, 19.6, mathematics, 19.4, science, 20.4, social studies, 20.6, and then world language, 19.9. So far below the range for the highest class size, but certainly this varies. So this is the average. So you might find a class that's a little larger, but typically that's within the range.
Thank you. Probably maybe the biggest question I think most taxpayers are going to have, I know the proposed budget, $101 million. What is the contingency budget amount? And what would that not include if it were to pass? Like you guys described, like I think a total of 30 new positions and a bus dispatcher that's a new position, but I thought there always was a bus dispatcher, so I'm a little confused on that. I know that the whole district registration thing is put another layer on. I had a few other questions, but I think key is what's the contingency budget?
Sure. So new to the to school finances and local government finances with the passage of the tax cap just 8 years ago, the contingency budget now requires that the school district levy a tax increase equal to the last tax levy of the most recently passed budget. So for the school district, the tax levy increase of let's see here. The contingency budget for next year would require a reduction of, $3 million, hold on, I want to give the exact number. I'm sorry, $3,006,271 would be required to be eliminated in the school budget, and that can be done either through reductions in staffing. Again, staff makes up 80% of our school budget. It would also require certain other reductions in extracurricular clubs, athletics, electives, advanced placement courses, student supplies, equipment purchases, and repairs. So it would be a combination of all of those items. Again, staffing makes up the lion's share of our budget, so there would certainly be a reduction in staffing. However, the specific positions has not yet been identified in a contingency budget. At this point in time, all that's been calculated in a contingency budget is the reduction in the budget, which again is just over $3 million in a contingency budget.
So along those lines, and the contingency budget would be closer to 96 or 97 million. How does that compare to the current budget?
Yeah, so this is actually, all of this information is contained in a document known as the budget statement. It's a required document that the school district is required to disseminate to the residents of the community. The budget notice is going to be mailed out on Saturday. It's our budget newsletter, which shows what's in the budget and also contains this budget notice. So I believe, I'm sorry, your question again was?
Current budget versus what would be the contingency?
Sure. So the current budget in the 18-19 school year, this year that we're in, is $98,062,000. The proposed budget for next year, 19-20, is $101,040,000. The contingency budget would be $98,034,000, so it would actually be slightly less than the 18-19 budget. But again, it will vary if unfortunately the district were forced to a contingency budget, that it would be able to utilize additional fund balance in order to make up or to reduce the number of positions that are lost in a contingency budget.
I have a question about staffing, and I know that there was a lot of different new and restored positions discussed. So when we have a budget that we approve or the voters pass, and it includes X number of positions, how is it then that like mid-year there's a thing in the paper or we get a flyer that says X number of positions have been added mid-year, whether they be full-time or part-time, and it says added, not somebody retired mid-year and they're having a person fill the unexpired term, or I'm just trying to grapple with the additional expenditure mid-year.
I can speak to that because it does occur in our services to students with IEPs. If we have a class size that exceeds the mandate for the students who have a particular classification, we have to add on additional staff, and we've done that a few times this year. And that we do have contingency for that reason, so every district has that and must have it because it's a mandated service. The same would apply for students whose first language is not English. If we can't provide for their education with our current staffing, and we have, let's say we get 2 or 3 students and whatever grade level or age, and that does in fact cause our class sizes to go higher, we do bring in new staffing. One of the things that we did this year, knowing that we had a mandate to add our K-5 school counselors, instead of waiting and competing with other school districts who were also going to be posting for the 19-20 school year, we asked the board to allow us to hire those people now rather than wait. I mean, we're going to have to do it, but we also knew we had students who had specific needs, so it's really driven by what we've heard from our teachers who are working with children who have social emotional needs or suffering from trauma. Rather than wait until 19-20 and bring the counselors in September, we felt a need and an obligation to hire those people now. And the same applies for aides or teaching assistants who then go along with those students who have IEPs. That typically is increased, as well as behavioral analyst time and CSC chair time.
I think I only have one more question. In the past, it's been advertised like what the average per student cost is to go through the school district, and I think a while ago it was $15,000 per student, and then I think it went up to 18 or 20. Do we know what that number is in today's economy?
35,000.
And how much of that number that you're going to tell me is offset by the state funding?
So as part of the budget document, it's a requirement that the school district present something that's available on the State Education Department website. It's called the Fiscal Accountability Supplement. And again, this is widely available. Anyone could look at this at any point in time, but it's a requirement that the district incorporate this document in the school budget. So the Fiscal Accountability Supplement prepares data from the 2016-17 year, which is the latest date of data available in the state system. So the general education cost per pupil, $14,919. The special education cost per pupil, $46,872. And it compares Brewster Central School District to similar school districts throughout the state, and then the statewide average of cost per pupil. And again, that's available both through the State Education Department website, and it's also incorporated in our budget statement on our website.
And you said that's going to be mailed out this Saturday?
Not this, the budget newsletter, which contains a budget notice, but on our, if you don't mind. So just a plug, on our website, we have a budget statement. It's a 131-page document, most of which is the New York State report card of Brewster Central School District. Again, that's a requirement of the state. There's a table of contents that has a lot of information about the district in there, so if you want to pick and choose which items you want to focus on, it's available on our website.
One last question, I promise. So it was discussed, Proposition 3 would be HVAC for JFK. JFK just underwent an addition. Was it not identified that they needed an HVAC system prior to doing the addition? I mean, wouldn't it have been easier for the voters to just approve one big dollar figure for the addition and the HVAC rather than do the addition first and now the HVAC?
So the district-wide renovation project bond that was ultimately passed by the voters in 2014, December 2014. Preceding that, there was a capital project task force committee that identified all the different needs, the facility needs of the district for all the school buildings. Air conditioning at JFK was certainly one of the needs identified by the committee. However, the price tag associated with it at that time and all of the other requested renovations of the school buildings far exceeded what at the time the administration and Board of Education felt would be supported by the voters. So certainly air conditioning at JFK was one of the discussion topics of the capital project task force. However, when it came time to make a decision on the final scope of the project, air conditioning was eliminated from the project scope.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And just as a side note, I know we're talking about Algonquin because they were huge, but that was a one-time windfall, both assessment-wise and, you know, taxpayer dollar-wise. I mean, the majority of the commercial properties that come on in the town in any given year, they average maybe $1 million, $1.5 million. We're not talking about big dollars and cents, but yes, they do help to contribute to the tax base and the various municipalities' budgets. And I've stood up here before you guys and I've done the adjusted base proportions each year, and each year it's about 60-40. So about 40% of the commercial of the tax burden is borne by the commercial properties, and that has increased over time because we have that percentage, because we have had the good fortune to have good commercial projects come into the town, and they do pay a higher tax rate. Thank you both.
And if I could, I would just like to thank Lori for all of her guidance throughout this process because, as she mentioned, it is a one-time anomaly with a property like Algonquin coming on. Part of the state's tax cap formula is extremely complicated. What's impacting our tax cap next year most significantly is something called the tax base growth factor, and it's based on growth within the tax base. It's provided from the state to the school district without any qualitative data of why it may be increasing. So again, I want to thank Lori for helping us dissect what led to the increase in the tax base growth factor, which ultimately led to an increase in our tax cap. So again, thank you, Lori, so much.
Tom. Yeah, Tom.
Hi, good evening. Tom LaPerch. I'm speaking as a planning board member regarding, Lynn, you asked most of the questions I would ask, and thank you. They're on point. I guess the question I have, are you, first of all, familiar with the logistics project that is in front of the planning board?
We're aware of it, yes.
Are you aware of what the representations they are making regarding the tax benefits to the community?
No.
Should be. Because the public, at many of the public hearings, are almost saying to us they'd rather see what is already an approved project of 143 houses. They'd like to see more neighbors, but they're saying the tax benefits that we generated are so substantial that this is a no-brainer in some ways. This is my word saying no-brainer. So I don't get why there's no engagement on your part to help us educate the public. And this has been years. I've been on the board for 10, 15 years, and I've never had any real engagement on these commercial projects and see what the net benefit is, you know, to this. And Lynn's brought it up, and we hear it from the public all the time. You approve, you know, we're taking the heat for approval for commercial stuff, but we don't get an engagement of where the net benefit is, or is there one? So I'd like you, as a school board, to help us kind of make sure these numbers make sense. Are they real, or what are they saying?
So, So it will certainly, relay onto the school board request to be more involved. But just as I described earlier, just like the town government, the school district's tax levy is what it can control, which is the size of the pie. How the pie is sliced up has to do with the different commercial properties that enter the tax base. So again, while commercial businesses may be promising additional revenue, it's really not additional revenue because the size of the pie is static. How it's sliced up is dependent on the assessments. So the school district is we are second in the process in that we're not involved in the assessments. However, the levy, which the school district controls, is determined by how the pie is sliced up.
One quick question, and Victor, Mr. Carlson, excuse me, you were nice enough to explain this to me on the pilot program, and I think it would be helpful to explain that it's more of a courtesy to you so that the public understands the school board's votes. Because I just think the more knowledge and transparency there is, the better off we all are.
Yes, and we've acknowledged, and here we want to thank the town board and also the Putnam County IDA for notifying the district of when pilot agreements are coming on board, because again, the school district is not the assessing authority. However, we are subject to pilot agreements in the same cost sharing ratio as the town and also the county. However, the school district has no authority to disapprove a pilot agreement that meets the standard criteria of 10-year declining balance. The school district has no authority to vote against that, even if the town were to go forward and approve it. If the town approved it, the school district is bound by it.
And so either way, you don't have authority, whether you say yay or nay.
Correct.
Just so our residents understand that, because I do think it's important, and it wasn't something that I clearly understood.
Correct, because again, the school district is not the assessing authority, so we have no say in that. And again, pilot agreements, in my opinion, pilot agreements are a good thing because they encourage commercial businesses into the tax base. Commercial businesses, in my opinion, are good for the tax base, and it helps again dilute the burden of residential taxpayers. But again, the district not being the assessing authority, the only thing the school district can control is the size of the pie, which is the tax levy. How it's distributed among the different commercial entities that enter into the tax base, that's beyond our scope.
Thank you.
Who do I talk to about coming to a meeting to understand the numbers?
You can come to any of our board meetings.
No, I'd like you to come to mine.
We can invite our Board of Education and they, to see if they'd be interested in coming, because at the end, it's,
The applicant actually requested a meeting with the board, somebody from your organization, at one of our staff review meetings to kind of talk about the issues, the public issues that we're facing that we can't address. So I did reach out to the board president and waiting to hear back with her.
let her know. I'll send her an email tomorrow.
We would like that. And the other question I have, and I think I heard it was corrected because we had a hurricane come through here many, many years ago, and most of the town was out of service, and the school was not open for the residents. Has that policy been changed?
Yes.
Yes, just
Yes,
so.
the school, I'd like to compliment, the
Okay.
school worked with me when I was first elected, and as it was Steve Jambor at the time, who was head of the Board of Education, and he goes, no one wants to spend the night in the gym. Of course we can do this if the schools are closed. So they were very helpful, and I believe we have an existing agreement. And Dr. Henning was very helpful with one of our storms last year or the year before and opened the schools. So I'm grateful because it's a really good point, and I think it really helps our community. So thanks,
We've
Don.
opened the showers for our community and collected toiletries and made those available on the last two microburst tornado disasters, and we'll continue to do that.
Look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just had a question about the pilot. So who is the assessing authority that would have the overall decision-making authority? the school district is asked whether they support a pilot or not.
Right, but again, the school district has no authority to disapprove a pilot that is agreed to by the, either the Putnam County IDA or the town.
Well, I think the Putnam County IDA, the town, the county, and the school board, I think, are all asked if they agree to support a pilot. So I think you do have a say in it. So anyway, I guess we'll have to look into that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Courtesy is what I was
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming, but you've blown our overtime budget.
We'll send you the bill.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're running a little bit late this evening, so we're gonna,
The county?
Yes.
Not the IDA.
No, the IDA.
Victor, don't forget you gotta close up shop here. I'd love a computer, thank you. It's in his budget, not mine. Okay, we can work around you if you don't mind, okay? Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is part of the work session, discussion, chapter 71, explosive and blasting. So that was an explosive session, so why don't you go into the blasting part, Ms. Eckhart?
Okay. We had, hold on one second, blasting, I got it here.
Now, basically, we went through 90% of this, I think, so what you're adding to it, I believe, is a definition.
I was adding a definition of explosives. It seems to be a pretty blanket. It's used by North Salem and Phillipstown. Those were the two I found. I thought they gave a little more definition and would be helpful. And the other thing that I thought was important, and I think Will really agreed, was that that it be our zoning code enforcement, our building inspector, who could be do the stop work orders and handle any problem. In other words, as it stands now, the town board would be the one to do a stop work order in some way, and then we'd have to have a hearing, and that's why I brought it up, because I think it's important to change that. And I did mail it out to the board, email it out to the board members. I used North Salem stop work orders for the building inspector.
That would be up to the building department. They issue stop work orders also.
Yeah, yes, and
it wouldn't have
it's
to
the
be
building
just-
inspector.
It wouldn't just have to be for blasting. What I
Right.
want to know is what definitions do you finally want to go with?
Well, the definitions I have read as follows, and this, as I said, is pretty standard, and I'll email it to everyone again. Gunpowder, powders used for blasting, high explosives, blasting materials, detonating fuses, fireworks, detonators, and other detonating agents, smokeless powder, and any chemical compound or any mechanical mixture containing any oxidizing and combustible units or other ingredients such as proportions, quantities, or packing, that ignition by fire, friction, concussion, percussion, or detonation of any part thereof may and is intended to cause an explosion. Explosives as defined herein shall not include gasoline, kerosene, naphtha, turpentine, benzene, acetone, ethyl ether, benzol, and quantities of black powder not exceeding 5 pounds for use in firing of antique firearms or artifacts or replicas thereof. Fixed ammunition and primers for small arms, firecrackers, safety fuses, and matches shall not be deemed to be explosives when the individual units contain any of the above-mentioned articles or substances in such limited quantity of such nature and so packed that it is impossible to produce an explosion of such units to the injury of life, limb, or property. So that, it seems to be pretty standard in a lot of towns.
Then what's the difference between a firework and a firecracker?
Firework, in my opinion, which doesn't mean much on this, I'm not a real aficionado, but it would be, fireworks would be large, firecrackers are pretty small.
Yeah, because it says it doesn't allow fireworks, but it allows firecrackers, but I was just curious.
Yeah. And we could change this any way we want. It may make it easier, if everyone feels it'll make it more difficult for our building department, then certainly that's not something we have to consider. But I also
Did
thought,
Did Michael Levine weigh in on this in any way?
not on this part. I'm also, if we are going to start having more distribution centers, I know they've been very good about saying they have no explosives and nothing banned, but I thought this would give us a little more definition to go by as well to protect our residents. But whatever the board thinks, I'm only one of 5, so.
It's not ringing.
No, at least it's not ringing, that's true. So, and this would.
Sleeping by now, so.
Right, and this would be, obviously, we would put this for the public to comment on as well.
Well, that's what we plan to do.
Right.
But I'm just not sure of exactly which one you're speaking.
I sent it to you, and there are 2
Well,
of
we
them.
have it, yeah,
Oh,
but there's
good.
2. Well, we
No,
have-
they're the same.
Yeah,
That's why.
identical?
Yes, that's why I said they're obviously a common, yeah, these 2 are identical. Life, limb, or property, life, limb, or property. Gunpowder, is there?
In this we changed.
That's the stop work order that we want to change from this, yes, yes. Okay. We can add anything from any, if people have found, if anyone on this board has found, I thought North Salem's was good, but if anyone finds something they think is better, that isn't too, I mean, if we're going to get this to a public hearing, we need to agree on this now, although we can always,
Well, we have everything, I don't know, do we decide on I think we were down to 750 and 1,000,
yes.
and I think there's 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's to 1,000. And we had, look, if you have a definition, it can't hurt, so.
Yeah,
I
that
can-
was
I can
my
live with it.
feeling, especially with, I just thought it really made
And
sense.
the hours of operation, too.
Right.
Yeah,
And
well, that
that's
was
it.
already done, we've already done all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and holidays.
So the only thing this is new to us this evening is the change and putting in the word of the day.
Definitions and the stop work, those are the 2,
Stop work order at the
Yeah.
bottom.
right. Because
Well-
otherwise, it would still be the town board may revoke any permit issued hereunder at any time for good cause shown. If permit revocation occurs, a hearing shall be conducted by the town board upon written notification of the permittee of the time and place of and reason for such hearing. And,
I don't support that.
no, that's what it is now.
I know,
Right,
So
and
we-
that's what Will suggested strongly, I think, that we change. So I like I thought North Salem's, I thought they had a good, and I can mail it out again tomorrow, Tony.
no,
so
we've got, everyone, I have it here now.
Right,
so.
okay,
We got to paste it together.
yep.
Now, I think are we setting, let me see if I set the public hearing. Hold on. Now I lost my
No,
sheet.
No,
no,
No?
no.
Okay, so,
maybe for the first one in July?
no,
No.
we'll get it. Okay, so, what's what I'm doing tonight? MS4, okay.
Facility policy.
Okay, so we have to,
Right. We can fine tune this and then put
Well,
it,
there's
you know,
not-
there's not
much more
much
to
to do.
fine-tune.
I think we're all pretty
Yeah.
much in agreement.
so we'll just add it to it.
Okay.
We can set the public hearing, when is the next one?
Set it tonight,
Yeah.
under number 1. Yeah,
I can't find it.
The next one's May 23rd.
Right.
yeah.
No, we can't, today's what?
Will we miss the deadline on that?
Well, I'll tell you what, we set the public hearing, June what?
I don't have my,
So we'll go in that one.
6th, Lori?
June 6th, yeah.
Thank you.
we can set it for then.
Yeah, we'll set it tonight for
Okay.
June 6th.
So we'll just have to add that to the
Yeah,
agenda.
and then,
Okay.
Okay.
so we'll do that, let's see.
We'll have to waive the rules.
Yep, we'll do that,
Okay.
and that's for blasting. Okay,
What a blast.
Gee, thanks, Don.
yeah, she's blowing the place up tonight. Okay, let me try to get organized here,
All right.
because we got a lot going on. We're not adjourning.
No.
Ready to go. Okay,
They wanted to get organized.
okay, so we're gonna set the public hearing in a bit. Okay, so let's move on now to number 2, discussion facility policy.
Okay.
Okay. We provided, again, some information from other towns. We have one on the books, which we found was Resolution Number 11 of 2008. That established the use of protocol for John Dunford Civic Center, which is this facility only. Now, what I did tonight for this meeting, I wanted to identify the various, I got too much paper here now.
Is that in it? Is that on the?
No,
No, you're right.
it's right here.
Move to adjourn.
You want to adjourn? She's had all the fun, come on. Oh, here we go. Got too many papers. And the printer's picking front and back, and I can't stand it. Okay.
Cheaper, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I can't work this way. Okay. The town facilities, we have 6 buildings in the town. We have 1 Main Street, 10 Palmer Road, 67 Main, 146 Pump House, 215 Shore, and 1360 Route 22. I think this is more about 215 Shore when we're done. We have recreational fields at 67 Zimmer, 81 Scalpino Park, 98 Oak Street, which is the villages at this time, 115 Scalpino Park, 145 Pump House Road, 531 North Main Street, 145 Pump House Road, 771 Route 22, which is Lecture Zone Field. So when we formulate whatever policy, we have to take into consideration all these. However, most of them don't apply. We've really never had a problem with the fields,
Right.
but it's never been a formal policy. So I'm going to speak to Patty and kind of let the recreation handle that aspect. I believe we as a town board will implement whatever they've done with the fields, which has been working very well for many, many, many years, and basically just discuss the buildings. And at this point in time, I believe it only applies to 215 Shore Drive. Now, we can we'll take all of them into consideration, but that's the main one that we have to discuss.
Right, and because there was a recent problem, so to speak, or issue at 67 Main, I know that, I mean, I don't know if it should pertain to both,
Well,
or,
it would.
okay.
I mean, again, the word politics came up into it, so how do we move forward with that? Do you want me to put together a package? I'll talk to Patty with the recreational. Put forward
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Let's not reinvent the wheel on what's been working well. I completely agree. But I think input from everyone is, you know, especially on Lakeview, and I think it would be really helpful to hear what everyone thinks about it. But putting something together would be very helpful.
Well, we need something to put on the table to
Yes.
discuss.
Yes.
So I'll put together a package, the recreational part, basically the 2 buildings. And if any of you have input, if you can get something to me by the end of next week.
I've got something. I'll mail it to you.
Yeah.
I'll email it to you tomorrow,
And
to
we'll put
everybody.
it, does everyone have something to say, we'll put it in, just so we have something to put on the table to discuss. I have a lot to discuss, but I'll wait till all of you have an opportunity to put forward as well.
No, I think that's a good idea, and I think everyone, I think it's not as easy as it sounds, so I'd really like to hear from everyone.
Okay.
It would be good.
Yeah, if we knew what's been working so far, I mean, does
the
Patty,
fields.
does Recreation have some kind of
There's
program
no written policy. It's been, and it's worked well for many years. You know, we work with the Little League for the fields.
Yeah.
Right.
We work with private groups for the fields. It runs well. It's all done through the recreation.
So that might be something that we don't need to codify, but
Well, we should have
Okay,
something
that's-
to run it.
I would go by what Patty and what's been working well,
Yeah.
and, yeah, that's
But
fine.
how do they, before we did the work at Lakeview, people were using Lakeview for some different classes and as well as the seniors.
Which I think we still want to do. Our bigger problem is renting it out for functions and things of that nature, because we've had nothing but problems
Right.
when we did that.
But who keeps track of who's renting it? Is
We're not
there-
gonna- that's
is there a
why-
log and stuff, or?
It was not a good system. It never worked properly. There's really no money into it. I don't want to go into it. I mean, tonight would not be a great night, but I'm telling you now, I have all the rationale as to why not. The neighbors in the neighborhood are, very upset with it.
No, and I understand all that, and I think there's a difference between rental or classes or card clubs during the
Yeah.
day, things during the
Yeah,
day.
the things on the weekends, we have to stay away from because we don't have the personnel for it. We
Right,
don't have-
parties and things, I think.
We just don't,
We understand.
we're not in the business of that. And it's never worked well.
Right.
Again, you guys are kind of insulated from it. I get the emails, which I do forward to you.
Right.
And you can see there's nothing but
Right.
problems.
I'm just looking to protect residents that will want to use it at daytime and for beneficial.
But it
I
has
think
to
we
be
can
for,
work that out.
there has to be some kind of, we can't be there all day while
No,
watching
no.
what goes on.
No.
I mean, it's basically used as a senior center. We have Historic Sites uses it in the
Right.
evenings. And on the weekends, there's just no one available. Things break down, things happen, there's no one to, monitor it. We don't have the personnel. So there's a lot to it, not doing certain things.
Yeah, I'd like to hear feedback from everyone, so for what, I'd like to offer the public as much as we can that isn't, I don't want to do private parties or any of that anymore, I agree. But I want to be able to see what we all come up with that will benefit our residents, but not bankrupt, not destroy the place, not cost a fortune. And I think if we all work on this, we'll come up with something
But
good.
it has to be kind of a Monday through Friday type schedule, and even in the evenings it becomes a problem. I mean, you had an event there one night and we couldn't get in because it's new with the
Right.
key and whatever, we had a problem with that.
Right.
It does create a problem.
Right.
So, okay.
All right.
I wrote something up. If I want to just make a small comment to it, we'll put it together as a little package
Okay,
and work on something. In the meantime, I'll ask Patty as well.
okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Patty and Kathy, I keep saying, it should be not Kathy and Patty. Okay. And next is e-waste. Okay, guys, we're getting really close, so I want to share with you where I'm at. Okay, site's not changing, going to be 10 Palmer Road. Hours of operation are going to be 10 to 2, rain or shine. It's going to be the first and third Saturday of each month. We're shooting for June, but unfortunately, I think June 1st is the first one, so we might have to wait till the second one.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be perfection to start because we've never done it before. We have a lot to do. I did get an email from someone interested in working for it, so we will probably end up having 3 people, because, especially to start, because and I'm going to ask some of the town board members to pitch in
Yeah, I'll be
as
happy to
well.
go down and help.
Maybe
them
one of
around.
us each time it's open, go down, so we have at least 4 hands there. We have a pent-up supply of e-waste by the time we open up by almost 6 months. It's going to be better run than earlier on because there was absolutely no rules, no regulations. What I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to ask you guys now if you agree with it, and if not, I'll start looking elsewhere. All the other towns have recycling centers. Our town does not. Our town recycling takes place now every Thursday. We're recycling, but if you go to any other town, they have facilities, they have stickers for the windows. I asked residents as I was going to door, and they get phone calls. People don't like the stickers on their cars. If they have to bring something that doesn't fit in their little Honda Fit or something else, they need to borrow someone's vehicle. So the decal doesn't kind of work. If you have a card, they lose the card. So I looked into a program. So basically, if you have your license, now I really wanted to show you guys, but we'll hopefully do it next time. We have a license reader. When they come in, we'll take any license in the United States, okay? And when you scan the back, there's a barcode on them. It tells you everything about the person dropping it in. As soon as we scan that license, it's in the computer. We know who came. Now, if someone comes in with a license outside of New York State, they will have to provide us with a bill, a utility bill, a tax bill, something to prove that they live in the town of Southeast. So their name would have to at least match their license.
Right.
And if it does not, it would get rejected. Now, we're going to have some rejection without a problem, but the following Monday morning, we'll take any rejection, search it out, and if we're accurate, we win. And if not, we have to apologize and probably go pick it up from the person. There's not going to be many of those. Now, what we have, because of people that live in Patterson, I have someone here that had a Patterson license, ran it, but it says Brewster, New York as their
Right.
address.
Right.
But we have a program, and I'm going to ask Eric to help out as well. We took all the roads. Lori was very instrumental in giving us, you know, the road. We have the road list from the town. So it's kind of difficult. People live in Hunters Glen, have Carmel, New York address. So when you come here, you can say, hey, you live in Carmel, you can't come here, but they're town of Southeast residents. But the program we're going to be putting together with the roads in the town of Southeast, we'll read it, identify it, and they'll be in.
Okay.
We have, now, right now, commercial businesses pay for their own garbage pickup. The residents of the town have it built into their tax base. So what I'm suggesting, I don't want to see e-waste all over the sides of the road. And I would like to offer commercial businesses that are in the town of Southeast, only in the town of Southeast, are allowed to use the program. If they use the program, they will have to pay, because they don't pay for waste now. On their own, they do. Families, residential properties pay for it in the taxes. So, do you want commercial properties to be able to bring it in there so it doesn't land on the side of the road or somewhere it's not, or not?
I wouldn't mind a trial period, and/or a limit on what they can bring.
Well, yeah, I got the limit coming.
Oh, okay.
It's
Because
coming.
North Salem, as I said, had a problem because they allowed the school district to use it, and it became an issue because there was.
Well, I believe the school district gets it picked up for free along with the
Yeah.
county, because they only generate what they generate themselves. It's a limited
Okay.
number.
So what's your limit?
So here's what I'm recommending. Town of Southeast residents be limited to no more than 5 items weighing less than 50 pounds be dropped off per day at no charge. Okay? And we don't want to bring 100 items either, because we don't have room. Any resident with more than 5 items or any single item weighing more than 50 pounds would be required to pre-register and prepay for a permit. And it's going to be done through my office. I'm not going to burden Michelle. She's got plenty to do.
This is businesses or residents?
Right now, we're talking residents.
Okay.
They're entitled to 5 items each drop-off.
Right.
Now, the first week, they can bring in 5. The next, well, we're trying to, there's a few people in town that are trying to go into the e-waste business, which is illegal. And unfortunately, when you have someone that can do something, you have to, account for every item that we do. So 5 items per visit. If something is more than 50 pounds, now they're still bringing in those projector TVs that weigh, I think they need a forklift to get it off the truck when they come in. We need to know when those types of items are coming in. Eric asked me earlier about, we're gonna have a scale. Nope, what weighs 50 pounds? If I can't pick it up, it's 50 pounds. I mean, if it
You can
takes
have a
2...
50-pound bag of fertilizer there.
I know,
left
and they're
over.
bulky, okay? So it's not big, but if it takes 2 people, not because of the bulk, because of the weight, that's 50 pounds. We're not gonna get a scale and weigh them. You have to use your imagination a little bit. Now, if someone brings in 20 of these, we'll take them, okay? That's not gonna, I wouldn't count that even as an item, but if they have 5 monitors, 5 whatever, and then they bring in 10 of these, we would take them as well. We're just talking bulky items. Because the container we have, now the deal we had worked out said 40 ton. They gave me the dimension, and I said, that's not 40 tons. It comes out to be 20 tons. So I have to work with them to find out, because if they're changing, it changes our cost, big time. Because I had it down 13 to 16 cents, and if it's not true, then it's 26 cents and 32 cents. So right now, I'm having a little bit of a tiff with them to verify what size the cargo container is. So, a driver's license, they come in, we scan it. If a person has an out-of-state license, and they claim they're a resident of town of Southeast, people move here from California, wherever, they'd have to bring a tax bill, they'd have to bring a utility bill, but their name has to match up to the license. So it's a little bit of work there. Again, it's going to be at the highway garage, be locked at the close of business every day. If people dump unauthorized, you are going to get chased by us, because we don't want you just dumping it at the gate and running away. So we're going to have cameras fixed on it, license plate reader. Don't dump it. Come back the following Thursday or following Saturday, whenever. We have to build a small building. When I say building, it's going to be like about 5 by 5. We want it to be able to be picked up by forklifts so it can be moved on the site. There may be a need for electricity, but right now with the computer, it will last with the power. There's a pole, we have to decide where it's going to go. It's going to require a porta-john and some signage. And the cost, commercial, computer monitors, flat screen TVs would be $5. These are commercial. Tube TVs less than 27 inch are $15. Tube TVs over 27 inch are $30. And oversized units of 50 pounds or more are $35. Now, the residential pay nothing, only on oversized units of 50 pounds or more. Okay? And this is all going to be on the town website. We're going to have an email address where people email, it will come to us, and my department will go back and forth and identify it. There'll be a list of accepted items, all the electronic waste, and other accepted items. And the dealer said to me today they wanted everything that comes in. I said, you will get everything. In other words, they don't want us
Right.
picking through them. They want everything.
Right.
And they said that will not be a problem.
What are the hours of operation?
10 to
10 to
2.
2,
10 to 2, and the first and third Saturdays?
first and third.
And commercial users, their carters don't accept e-waste?
I guess if they threw it in the dumpster, they would. But they'd have to make a special run just for electronic waste. It's not part of the main
Okay,
waste stream.
so commercial
Commercial?
people come to you to ask you?
Nope, I haven't had one, but I think we should make the modification now instead of bringing it on later on, if we want to do it, and I think we should.
Well, I'm not sure if there's a need or not. That's why I'm wondering.
Well, my store had TVs, we had computers, and what do I do when I'm done with it?
Well, was the e-waste program in?
No, but I'm saying, businesses have TVs. My
Well,
God,
they definitely have computers, so.
you go up to one of these, I won't mention, fast food restaurants and
Bars.
restaurants, bars, they got 10 TVs there.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know whether there was a need for it or not. I know there is a need for the residents, but I'm not sure if the commercial.
Well, it would be good, I mean, I would kind of, I feel like a trial basis of 6 months.
Well,
in
that's all
case
gonna-
we're deluged,
Yeah.
and so people understand, we want to try this out, we really want to help you out, but we've got to protect,
I think dumpsters typically, dumpsters, commercial usually have dumpsters. They may be just throwing them in the dumpsters. This may be a better avenue to get rid of it
Right,
more
right,
responsibly.
it might be,
Definitely.
yeah.
So maybe we do, even if there's not a need now, maybe there will be a need.
Right.
And I have 2 monitors sitting in my basement for the past 6 months. So I'll be your first customer, and I'll give tons of feedback, and this will be fluid, and we can make changes as we see fit, right?
Yeah, this is all brand new to us.
Oh, you
So-
can work the first day, Eric.
Yeah, I plan on going the first
And
day.
he's
And
gonna
I'm
drop
happy.
something off.
I
just
got
to
2
verify.
monitors,
Yeah,
so.
okay, they
I'm
better
happy
be
to
under
hear you
50
bring-
pounds.
Can you stop by my house? I've got a couple for you.
Okay, so the bottom line, by the next meeting, we should know if we're gonna be up and operational for the first or the
Okay.
third.
Okay,
But that's the goal.
good.
So we
Thank
got the
you.
commercial, all I have to do is work on, I would say, some of the Mickey Mouse things. And we're gonna get, the first couple of drops are gonna be a bunch.
Right.
And we'll see how it goes.
Good.
If we need more, we do more.
Yeah,
Pickups.
if we need less, we'll do
Whatever,
less.
if we do less, it's less. We have to play it by ear. You live in Patterson. You got a Brewster address.
Yes, I do.
It won't fly.
Boy, this sounds like 12 years ago. Why do you want to get into the e-waste business?
We have to.
I understand for residential, but now you're talking about commercial. If you open it up to commercial entities to do this, you will have your storage things filled in one day.
Right?
And
We'll be making, at least we'll be making
you're
money on it.
arbitrarily making certain dollar figures for a 27-inch TV at $5. What if the commercial people are paying $50 to get rid of it? All you're doing is giving them something extra and giving you more work. I mean, residential, I think, is the greatest thing. But you open it up to commercial, now you're
So
opening
you'd
your
rather
business.
see it dumped on the side of the road possibly?
Why would commercial stuff be dumped on the side of the road?
Well, where would they
What
put it?
Eric says, they have commercial dumpsters. They take their old monitors and throw it into the dumpster.
That's not where it belongs.
It does for them.
Not necessarily. We don't know that.
What do you care?
I care about what's on the side of the environment in our town.
But they're getting rid of their stuff the way they have for whatever. Why does the town want to get into a business of collecting e-waste from commercial?
Well, I'm
companies?
guessing if they can just throw it in their dumpster for nothing, that's what they're gonna continue
Yeah.
to do. If they wanna be more responsible and pay money to get rid of it, not that we're gonna make money, but then they would bring it to us. So I think responsibility-wise of how things end up, but
I
I
understand-
see
I
what
understand.
you're, I see where you're going, that it could be a living nightmare. That's
Yes.
why I would make it a trial period, maybe only 3, whatever. I think it's nice if we can accommodate commercial, but if it backfires, then they
At
can go back
least-
to dumping it in their dumpster.
At least what I would suggest doing is to find out from some commercial enterprise in town how they get rid of their waste, their e-waste, and if they do it responsibly, how much does it cost them?
Right. I
You
think
know,
that's-
saying that an old computer monitor, first of all, takes up a lot of space in a dumpster, and they're getting rid of it the responsible way, and it costs them $25 to get rid of it.
Well, we just heard a few minutes ago that 60% of the properties, or the commercial properties, pay the highest taxes in our town. And by doing what we're offering them something which I think should be made available to them. I was a businessman in the town of Southeast, and I'm also a resident. Now, I could have just brought my home, but people may want an area to dispose of it, and we give them that option. But
Okay,
they're
no,
residents of our, they're not
Tony, I
residents.
understand completely what you're saying, and for a business such as you had, maybe you had
Not just me.
5 or 10 monitors or TVs or whatever you had to get rid of. If you go to some place that has 150 employees, and every employee has a computer on their desk, and their printers, and their fax machines, and everything else, it could be a living nightmare for the town
I say we try
with
it.
this.
Yeah, I think we're saying, we could always adjust. I think we're saying a maximum of 5, we keep a record, but I get your concern, but
I could try, what I like the idea, I could call some local businesses and see what they do. I think that's a good
Exactly.
suggestion.
Now, if they do just throw it in the dumpster, which I know a lot of people do,
course they do.
I agree, then they have an option. But at least find out what the commercial cost to getting rid of e-waste is for a particular item.
They may not even consider e-waste. They might just throw it in the dumpster.
It could very well be. I know a lot of
I
them
think I have a
do.
good spot to call, so let me do this.
Okay.
And I really do think it's a good suggestion. I mean, if we can dispose of it more responsibly, I think it's better, but if we're gonna be deluged now, so I will call.
We could also be competing with some other enterprise who's
Correct.
doing this, and
Oh,
we could cause some financial harm to some other entity, and we could also, if it's commercial business that has offices in other locations, we are now giving them an opportunity to dispose of their e-waste from other,
They're sort of going to ship it to the town of Southeast because we'll accept it.
well, if they're paying something
See,
more than what we are, or we're going to be charging
I'm going
them.
to check with the town of Patterson and see what they do, because they have a recycling center, I believe Carmel, each one of them.
Kent does.
And the only thing that we have in our town, our garbage is on our tax bills and people pay for it. That's why we're not charging residents.
Yeah. Well, I agree with what John was saying, that, you know, that's what I was saying, that you have to check to see how much commercial property owners pay for e-waste. Because if somebody out there is paying $25 to get rid of a computer monitor, and you're saying it's going to cost you $5, then you're getting into competition
No.
with that guy that charges $25.
All the numbers I got are pretty much standard throughout the area here for all the different, our towns, per se, okay?
You guys
Unionville.
work so hard on doing all these other things, getting into the recycling business.
We're not getting, we don't, look, we're not.
I tell you, Tony,
we're-
from the back of the room, it sounds as if you're getting into the recycling.
We are, because we have to. You think we want to do this?
For residents, I think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Oh.
But now you open up commercial, I just think you're
They're
opening a
commercial
can of worms.
businesses in the town of Southeast only. They pay more taxes than we do.
Good,
Well, Peter, you surprised me.
that does
But
help.
just don't come down, because you're a Patterson resident with a Brewster dress. Don't come down, please.
I will not.
But if you had your
I'll
business
give
like
it to
you
my
used to,
father-in-law
if you
to
had
bring
your
down.
business like you used to
Yes.
have here in Brewster, then you could bring it down.
But I wouldn't have been a resident.
You could, but your business in the town of Southeast. Huh?
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
See? We're the first
Lori,
person
can you
who
leave
is a
him home in the
controversy.
future?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, leave him home, would you?
We're going into overtime.
Okay, any rate, we'll check. I'm gonna just.
I'll make some calls, too. I think I have an idea.
Again, I only think it's fair.
Okay.
And we're not going, we don't want to be in business, trust me. I wish it
No.
stayed the way it was, but you know what? We're forced into it.
Yeah.
Okay, what else we got?
We're done.
Okay, so we'll continue moving along on that. And now we make a motion to go into regular portion of the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and item 1, set public hearing for,
Do we have to waive them?
no, would you let me do my job?
All right, go ahead.
What does number 1 say? Do you read number 1 for us?
Set public hearing on the MS4 annual report. That's
Ah.
fine, but are we going to set one for blasting? That was my
Yes, but
question.
that
Okay.
comes at the end.
Oh, at the very end, okay.
Okay, so the motion's made to set the public hearing for the MS4 annual report for Thursday, May 23rd. We have to approve it that night as well, because I hate to have a public hearing and do it the same evening, but the report is then due the very next day. So we have no choice. So I move, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 2 is a resolution, Braniff Court LLC Stormwater Control Facility Maintenance and Access Agreement. Now therefore be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute and deliver a stormwater maintenance agreement and easement in the form and substance approved by the town attorney to be executed by the current owner of the premises located at 65 Fields Lane, tax map 78.2-15, and be further resolved that such agreement shall be recorded in the office of Putnam County Clerk forthwith and shall run with the land. So move for discussion.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 3, resolution, standard workday and reporting. Now therefore be resolved that the town of Southeast hereby amends the standard workday schedule previously adopted and submitted for elected and appointed officials for the current administration to include the newly elected councilperson and will report this following days worked in New York State and local employees retirement system based upon the record of activities maintained and submitted by the office to the town clerk. And Eric, you are that person. 12.1.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one wanted to discuss this?
Nah. He did his time, marked it down. Now, I'd like to make a motion to waive the rules, to put an item on the motion to waive the rules.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and on the motion to set a public hearing for June 6th to advertise a public hearing for blasting.
Explosives and blasting, I'll second. Chapter 71.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. Peter, come on, get over here.
Tony, am I allowed to vote on that? Because that's me.
Public comment from Patterson.
No, don't give any ideas. Okay. Anyone from the board?
Well, I'll wish everyone a happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
You're a mother, I should have been doing that, or we should have been doing that for you.
Oh, well, there you go. But anyhow.
My
I
mom
will-
said Happy Mother's Day, and so did the
Yes,
guys.
yes.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. And
And this Sunday is VFW breakfast at 9 o'clock. Memorial Day, that's at the end of the month, so we'll have another meeting before that.
yes, we will.
And
Lynn, I got an email from the Milltown Association. I wasn't going to say anything, but I thought that you were going to recognize.
it's coming.
We are going to do that,
okay.
it's fine, we're gonna, no, it's fine. We're going to recognize everyone who helped out for the Earth Day and cleanup weekend, because although the weather was horrendous, there really were a lot of, there were some new faces, and I always like to recognize everyone. But you'll be helping that night too, so, thank you. And
Just a reminder about 911 numbering, please start getting that done. And one announcement, the American Red Cross, they're giving away smoke alarms. Install free 10-year smoke alarms in any and all recommended areas, provided valuable emergency preparedness tips and information. and to demonstrate how to develop a family disaster plan for homes. It's something worthwhile. Anyone's eligible to participate. I think at least 30 days this is going to happen. And if you're interested in it, call 845-673-1198 or visit, it's a web page, sound, S-O-U-N-D, the, T-H-E, alarm, ALARM/MNYN. This will be on the town's webpage. Some members of the community can't afford systems, et cetera, and it's a very nice program, so it's being in effect for at least 30 days, and it's going to be on our webpage in English and Spanish. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
A second?
No,
Oh,
I never move, I like this, I'm staying.
oh, I don't know what
Okay,
to do.
he moves, who seconds?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.